It's time for your daily LSU baseball update with Musso at the box. Now, Matt Musso.
Off and running. Welcome in another edition of Musso at the Box, presented by Got Lit Light Installers. Cold weather sucks. LSU Nichols postponed. They will not play it on Wednesday night. By now, you probably have heard that news. That's really unfortunate for a couple of reasons that we can get into here. They have rescheduled the game. LSU will now host Nichols on Monday evening at 6 p.m. at the box. And then the later date with Nichols that was originally scheduled to be at the box April 8th will now take place in Thibodeau. So basically they just flip-flopped the site of each game and moved what was supposed to be Wednesday night's game to Monday. So you have a 4-game weekend for LSU. But I figured, hey, since the game is canceled and we won't have a live stream reaction tonight, this is the perfect time for our first Q&A of the season. Put out the call for questions shortly after the news was announced on Twitter. Y'all responded as per usual, so we will go through your questions here on Musso at the Box. Subscribe. Smash the like button if you have not already. Both YouTube and your favorite podcast app. All of that is greatly appreciated. Follow me on social media. Those handles scroll on the screen below you. And let's go ahead and get right to it. Now, I will say, whenever I posted the call for questions on Twitter, Kyle was the first comment, and he came out the gate with heat. Like, this is plus heat from Kyle asking, what's my top 3 uniforms? And we're going to get to that, but I still haven't decided, so I need a little bit more time. So, Kyle, stick with me. I will answer that question because it's fantastic. But let's start with a few of the other ones that do deal around baseball. And we're going to get to the uniforms and not at the end because I'm pretty close. It's a really hard question, but it's a great question. We'll start with Brandon at Philly B4. Talking about Jay has the best problem managing the roster, too much talent, but at what point in the season do you have to be honest with some of the guys that he's coaching and giving opportunities that needs to settle on his top 12, 15 guys instead of 20 plus? Okay, let's talk about that because I've obviously said plenty that it has to come together faster for this team than it did a year ago. And I firmly believe that. I think there's a few things that are different this season than a year ago. I think when dealing with that depth, you have more established guys. Like Jake Brown is part of that rotation. He's more established in 2025 than he was in 2024 as a freshman. Ashton Larson is more established in 2025 than he was in 2024 as a freshman. Ethan Fry certainly looks like he's finally, hopefully, going to be able to take advantage of an opportunity. So having the more established guys, I think, gives you a little bit more leeway. Now, that being said, we talk all the time, and I'm not backing off on this, that I think it is horrible for guys to show up to the ballpark each day and not knowing if they're going to be in the starting lineup. That's a really uncomfortable feeling, which is 100%. I don't think that's really debatable. The other thing that I think differs from a season ago with this, Brandon, is, and I don't mean this as a slight, you open conference play with Missouri at home. You're not going on the road to Starkville and then having to play Florida and Arkansas and Vanderbilt and Tennessee. So here's what I will tell you. It needs to happen, but also this sort of thing should happen naturally, right? And when you have more established players like you do in these roles, I think you're more confident in it happening naturally. It happened naturally a season ago. It just took a while. Like eventually you were like, yeah, Ashton Larson can't come out of the lineup. Yeah, Jake Brown can't really come out of the lineup. Well, Josh Pearson's our veteran. He's going to be in there because he's going to come up with big at-bats whenever we need them, and he provides leadership in there too. Eventually it separated itself out. I think with the more established guys, that can lend itself to happening sooner this year. And I think what's also important to keep in mind is you're about to get tested in a week's time. Like a week from tonight, the day I'm recording this show, LSU is going to face a ranked Dallas Baptist team in Arlington. And then you're going to go face two tournament teams from a year ago in a tournament in Frisco. And you're going to get tested, and that's where you could start to see separation. And then you'll play North Alabama and North Dakota State, and then you'll open against Missouri. So what I would tell you is by Texas, the second weekend of conference play, I want some of this sorted out. That's the way I would like it. That was a long-winded way of telling you week number 2 in the SEC, I think, is a good target to have this done. And I think you could see it really starting next week start to separate itself out as the competition finally ratchets up a little bit more for LSU. Nathan at Nathan Hodge 13 on Twitter. What non-conference matchup are you looking forward to the most? What conference matchup are you excited about the most? It's DBU. I mean, it's Dallas Baptist. It's the best game on LSU's non-conference schedule. No disrespect to Kansas State, no disrespect to Nebraska. We're actually going to talk about those two teams here momentarily with a different question. They're off to great starts. They were tournament teams a year ago. Dallas Baptist has just been a much more established program than those here in the last, call it decade or so in college baseball. And to see LSU finally get to match up with them, really on their home turf in Arlington, on a big stage like Globe Life Park, and it's going to be a ranked-on-ranked matchup. That's very intriguing to me. Conference, that's that's tough. LSU's got a really awesome conference slate, and they've got a great home conference slate. It's hard to not look and say Texas A&M, though. That potentially that's going to be a top 5 matchup at Bluebell Park starting May 2nd. That potentially could be a 1 versus 2 matchup. It's going to have major implications for national seeds. It'll have major implications for the SEC title race in the regular season. It is A&M. I know that's the chalk answer, but that's a team that played for a Natty a year ago that you beat on your home field. They're going to be out for revenge. It should be a hell of an environment over there in Bluebell. So that is the answer. The answer is Texas A&M. Let's see here. Ashton at Ashton 672880 on Twitter asked, do you think Ashton Larson gets regular time and is behind Jared Jones because Larson continues to hit? Possibly. Yeah, Larson's going to continue to get time. And I expect at some point this season, he's going to do what he did a year ago, and he's going to force your hand, and you're not going to be able to take him out of the lineup. Because as Ashton puts in his tweet, he continues to hit. And that's what we've said. Yeah, the kid just hits the ball. So yes, eventually there. I think you still see the rotation early, kind of like what we talked about with Brandon's question. And hopefully you have that sorted out definitely by week 2 in the SEC. Whether he's behind Jared Jones or not, we'll have to wait and see. Again, that would provide right-left, the alternating that Jay likes to do. But you've got a lot of guys hitting in that lineup right now, and you've had success early having multiple people behind Jared Jones. So that's something that just still has to play it out. Early season, guys, like this is early season Q&A. So a lot of that is, it's us to play out. Keenan at _Keenan_. What did Aaron Beatty do to the baseball gods to upset them? He's crushing the ball and he can't find a hole. Yeah, I don't know. He really is. He's squaring the ball up very well right now. And even his one hit on the season, he scalded at the third baseman and it popped out of his glove. So I'm not sure there. He also asked, how does Jay handle the embarrassment of riches he has in the outfit and at the plate? We kind of talked about that at the start, so I won't rehash all of it. But that's, Aaron Beatty. I don't know. They're going to fall in for him, and when they do, he's going to be able to make a serious run at the catcher position. What I would tell you, Keenan, for that is, until they start falling in, I'd love to see Aaron Beatty continue to really work on his defense behind the plate. That way, when they do, not only will he make the run at the catcher position, he could take a hold of the catcher position. So we'll have to wait and see there. At PLG987, thoughts on bumping Bear up to the 2-hole and putting Curiel at 3, give Jared some protection with the hottest hitter on the team, then possibly hit Braswell or Milam 9 for the second leadoff in an attempt to give Bear more or RBI opportunities, hitting in the in the 2 hole. It's not a bad thought, but I just think they're pretty set on their 1, 2, 3 right now. I don't think that's something they're willing to move around. And I think maybe what they're looking at is with Stanfield and Curiel in front of Jones, both of those guys are going to get on base at a high clip. So you already are going to have plenty of opportunity for him there. Stanfield and Curiel are kind of the same player in a sense. Speed, great contact hitters. Curiel's developing the power. You know, they each both handle the bat well with an ability to bunt. I mean, look at Curiel's first hit of his career was the bunt off the third base bag. So I think they like that structure because you're already giving Jones a lot of RBI opportunity. What's more interesting is protecting him. And I mean, if we're talking hottest hitter on the team, Danny Dickinson is that guy right now. And I like him behind Jared Jones early because it allows for some pop in the bat, but also a guy who's just squaring it up and using all fields right now and driving in the runs. That's what you want. You want the guy who's going to drive in runs behind Jared Jones. And right now, Danny Dickinson's your RBI leader. I know it's 4 games, it's a small sample size, but he's that guy right now. That's going to deter people putting Jared Jones on when you have someone behind him who changes the scoreboard. And that's ultimately what you're seeing from Dickinson in that spot. All right. We're going to get to Kyle's question about the uniforms. But first, Gotlit Lights. Gotlit Light Installers, GotLitLights.com. They're bringing you Musso at the box every single day for the rest of baseball season. Fired up to be teamed up with Derek and his team over there. You've heard about them plenty across our many platforms here on Guaranteed. What you heard about was the Christmas lights, right? And they're great at the Christmas lights. And they're still doing the Christmas lights. So mark that away. You've probably used them. Custom design. They'll install, tear down, store, all of those things. But they've expanded the business into other lighting, just exterior lighting in general, temporary lighting for private events that you might be hosting, weddings, engagement parties, birthdays, anniversaries, all of those things. Landscape lighting, permanent. Whatever you need to illuminate your space, GotLit has for you. Everything looks better when it's lit, and that's why you go to GotLitLights.com. You can get a quote there. Trust me, work with Derek, work with his team. You won't regret it. It is an elite customer service experience and an elite relationship building experience that you get at GotLit Lights. Maybe the lights aren't for you. Maybe you want a little decoration. Well, wreaths for Easter, for Mardi Gras, all of those things now come along with GotLit Lights. GotLitLights.com. All right, Kyle, my top 3 favorite uniforms. Okay, I want to get this addressed right now. Number 1 would be the gold. It would be the gold jerseys, but that comes with a caveat that doesn't happen. If LSU, when they wore the gold jerseys, white pants, mandated everyone had the purple socks up, that is clearly LSU's best uniform combination. It is aesthetically beautiful. It mixes in all the colors of your scheme. It's perfect. But that's not the case. So the gold actually doesn't make my top 3. Which I know might be surprising. It's obviously in the top 5. Also in the top 5 would just be LSU's solid purple jersey with the solid white pants. So I think you can see where I'm going with this right now. Number 1 is the pins. I won't bear the lead. The pinstripes with the cursive tigers, the state of Louisiana on the back, that is number 1. When you do have the socks up with that, it looks great as well. It's just a lot of synergy with the purple. There's enough gold accent on it to make it pop. That is number 1. I think it's beautiful. Number 2 for me is the grays. I love the road grays, especially this version of the road grays. In fact, I will tell you what they need to do is what they've done in the past is take this version of the road grays, keep them, but also make them the home whites and never touch them again because they're perfect. I love the interlocking LSU on the breast. The purple piping pops with that darker gray that LSU has. Again, you have the gold accent. It's a beautiful, beautiful uniform. The only thing that's keeping the home whites out of the conversation right now is the Tigers across the chest. It's too aggressive, especially with the piping. I don't really love that. But that's why I'm saying all you do, and they've done this in the past, like the early 2010s, this was LSU's white and road uniform, home white and road uniform. It was the same thing, just one was gray, one was right. It was the interlocking LSU on the breast, the number on the side, the piping. It was fantastic. So I'll go road grays number 2. And number 3 for me is what they wore Tuesday. I love the purple jersey on the pinstripe pants. I think it is extremely underrated. I think not enough people appreciate it. I think LSU does not wear it enough. And for me, it's my third favorite uniform combination that they have. And then if you went into the top 5, then it would just be the golds on whites. The championship gold has to be in there. And then the solid purple on the white. But if LSU mandated that the purple socks be worn up and showing with those gold uniforms, clear cut number 1, the synergy's unmatched. But there you go. The pins, the road grays, and what they wore Tuesday, the purple jersey on the pinstripe pants. Fantastic. Great question, Kyle. See, look, guys, it doesn't all have to be on the field stuff. I love talking the on the field stuff, but I love uniforms so much. And that one, I love that question. All right. We have a couple more to get to. Dennis at Dennis_Rob24. Do you have any concern with what feels like a lack of power in the lineup? No. And here's why I will say that. They've played 4 games. They've hit 4 home runs. They're right at a home run per game. That's kind of where I think this team is going to be. I think you'll continue to see Danny Dickinson. I think there's also guys in this lineup who maybe haven't tapped into their power quite yet. You've got a few games with the wind blowing in, a few games with the wind blowing out. That's just how it kind of goes early in the season. Do you have Dylan Cruz, Tommy White, Jared Jones, Braden Jober, all those guys in the same lineup where you're going to hit 144 homers? No. But the low mark for Jay Johnson teams at LSU so far have been 114. I don't know if LSU gets there, but I think they're in that range of 95 to 100. And with everything else they're doing, with the aggressiveness on the base paths, moving the offense, hitting runs, things of that nature, 95 to 105 is plenty for this team. And I think Jake Brown's a guy who could end up getting to double digits. I think Stephen Milam could potentially get to double digits. I mean, he hit 8 a season ago, y'all. So that's certainly possible. Danny Dickinson, as we mentioned, we'll just have to wait and see. And I mean, and then there's Bear. I mean, again, Bear has a legit chance to hit 30. He needs to pick up the pace a little bit, but he has a legit chance to hit 30. So Dennis, short answer is no. They're right at a home run per game. I think that's a really good clip, and I think that's something this team kind of follows, and eventually you'll have, the one where you hit 3 and you'll get above that total. So no, I am not at this point. Brian sends in at Drum Tech 890. If you were Jay, top of the 9th, up by 1, you needed 1 out with the bases loaded, Schmidt, Guidry, or other. This is easy for me at this point in the season. It's Gavin Guidry. At this point in the season, they've played 4 games. Gavin Guidry is the only player on this team, the only pitcher on this team who has proven he can get that out. William Schmidt, do I think he profiles and has a role potentially towards the back end of your bullpen? Sure, he can. Kason Evans, Maverick Rizzi, absolutely. Look at the stuff. But they're freshmen. Gavin Guidry got the final outs in Omaha. Gavin Guidry, and I understand it was 18-4. Gavin Guidry got the final outs in the Super Regional against Kentucky, or really went in the tipping point in that game when you needed him to in game number 2 as a freshman. So it's possible for a freshman, but again, that's a guy who's done this now for 2 seasons. So for me, the answer is easy right now is Gavin Guidry. That factors into another question here from Sir Saint at Sir_Saint1. He's very thankful that LSU baseball is here because it's been rough with New Orleans sports. Although Kellen Moore, guys, here we go. Start up the hype train. It's going to be a long rebuild, but Kellen Moore might be the guy for the job. Okay, Sir Saint asks, do we see Guidry on Friday now to get him some work with the game being canceled? We all assume that Gavin Guidry would start. I think the answer there is unequivocally yes. You'll definitely see him this weekend, but I think he should be first out of the bullpen on Friday. Get him some work, stretch him out. You don't need that closer role yet for LSU. Yeah, I think you go there. We have a couple more here to get to. my guy, Reggie Chapman, formerly of WBRZ and a former classmate of mine, actually at the Manship School at LSU. Hey, Musso, are we back or is it too early to tell? Reg, too early to tell right now, but the early returns, really good. Check back later. In fact, I think the last time you and I went through this exercise was 2023 and they won a natty. So actually, definitely check back later and let's do this throughout the season because it worked out well. Last time. All right. Two more. Dustin B at Dustin X. Yeah, I don't know what your Twitter handle is there, Dustin. That's very interesting. But he listens to the show all the time. He's always on the live streams. He's a good guy. He asks, why doesn't LSU baseball schedule a non-conference home and home with a regional Power 5 team like FSU or Baylor? I get the money thing, but it's always a good thing to face quality opponents before SEC play. They do that already. It's just not in home and home. That's your answer. Like, that's why. I mean, would it be great to have the marquee home and home deal? Sure. I mean, that'd be awesome. But like from a fan perspective, yeah. But LSU tests themselves in the non-conference. They just do it in the tournament format now. Think back to when LSU started going to these preseason tournaments. The first time they did it was in Houston, at the College Classic there. And then it became Shriners and now the Astros Foundation Classic and all that stuff. Think of the teams you've seen. Like, you've seen TCU, you've seen Texas a handful of times, Baylor, Texas Tech. I mean, you've seen a lot of good teams in those events. Teams that have made Omaha, teams that have made tournaments. You are absolutely tested. In a week, LSU is going to go face a ranked DBU team. Then in the Frisco Classic, they're going to face a Kansas State team who was an NCAA tournament team a year ago, who just on Tuesday night took number 6 North Carolina to the wire in Chapel Hill. That's a good ball club that you're going to face, and that's going to test you. The next day, you're going to face a ranked Nebraska team who already beat Vanderbilt in a tournament opening weekend. So they do test themselves, Dustin. It's just not in the home and home factor there. And I think it's great that LSU tests themselves. And I think we learn things about them every time that they do. LSU in 2017 was the national runner-up. They lost to TCU and Texas Tech in the tournament in Houston that year. So, I mean, you learned a lot about them then. Would I love to see them have those marquee home and homes? Of course. That'd be awesome. I mean, I can remember under Paul Maneri, they had Cal State Fullerton come in for a weekend. The place was packed. That was great. LSU swept that series too in pretty convincing fashion. That was in 2011. Of course, remember the home and home they had with Texas. Later in Maneri's tenure at LSU, those were great. You were able to put 10,000 people in the box like week 2, week 3. It was awesome. But they find ways to test themselves, and right now it's just more in that tournament aspect. But yeah, I mean, of course, I'd love to see that. I mean, that'd be great. I think FSU would be hella fun. It doesn't even have to be FSU. I mean, if you just had a weekend with Southern Miss, right? I mean, that's a really quality program. I mean, I think that would be awesome. So, I mean, and you've seen them not even with just regional Power 5, Power 5, Power 4. I mean, Indiana's come down for series. Illinois has come down for series early in the season. Boston College, Maryland, like they have done it. But it's more in that tournament vein now. And I'm good with that too, because it also allows for a lot of cool trips. The trip to Houston is one of my favorite things. I have not missed it since they've started going over there. It's just a great atmosphere, and it seemed like everybody enjoyed Round Rock, and I can't wait to hear about everybody's time in Frisco as well. All right, final question. Chris McKinney at McKinney_Chris. Is Chandler Dorsey still on the team? Feel like I haven't heard about him much. Sounded like a good get out of the portal when he signed. Yes, Chandler Dorsey is still on the team, and I suspected you were going to see him Wednesday when they faced Nichols, but that game got postponed. I think you'll see him at some point this weekend, because you have a 4-game weekend now. So yeah, and look, saw Dorsey pitch one time in the preseason, the winter leading up. He got roughed up a little bit, but the very next week he bounced back and threw an inning in the third shutout. So for sure, that's another guy who potentially factors into the back end of your bullpen, Chris. That's what I would say, and that could go back to Brian's question earlier too. Dorsey's a guy who has gotten those last outs. He was South Florida's primary closer a season ago. The fastball can get up to the mid-90s. Like, no, it's good stuff from Chandler Dorsey from the right side. So the way I kind of termed it is, man, you end up with Dorsey, Guidry, potentially tag teaming the back end of your bullpen, also having Rizzi and Evans potentially there. That's, I'd put that up against just about anybody else in the country. So, we'll have to wait and see. But yes, Chandler Dorsey is still on the team, and I suspect you will see him at some point this weekend, because now LSU has a 4-game weekend, 3 with Omaha, and then Monday evening at the Box with Nichols to make up Wednesday night's game. Guys, I appreciate it as always. Great feedback, great questions. Love doing these Q&As. Next one will probably be as we enter SEC play. We'll let them get through the rest of the pre-conference and revisit this. And then, of course, we'll have our postseason one as well. Love to sprinkle them in whenever we can. The response is always top-notch and overwhelming. So thank you for all of that. That's going to wrap it up for today. Smash the like on your way out. Follow on social media. Subscribe. Subscribe YouTube and your favorite podcast app. Just search Musso at the Box. Be here next time for more on Musso at the Box, presented by Got Lit Lights.